If you've been playing pickleball for a while, you've probably heard somebody say, don't use your wrist. And it's probably true. You probably don't want to be using your wrist. However, I'm going to take you guys through a couple different situations in which it might be appropriate to actually use your wrist. Once you've gotten very, very comfortable with your roll volleys without using your wrist, then you can start to use your wrist to increase the amount of spin that you get on your roll volleys. Once we're very, very consistent with our roll volley, we can start to get a little bit of additional spin by breaking our wrist and snapping up the back of the ball. Down here and snapping. It's a very, very risky play because generally we want to be using our bigger muscles, which for me is none of them. But that's okay. I'm using my bigger muscles, meaning my legs, my shoulders, my arms, rather than our smaller muscles like our hand and our wrist. Because when we're using these smaller levers, it's more likely that there's going to be bigger differences in our paddle angle, causing less control, more pop-ups. But once you get that very, very well refined, then you can start to add a little bit of wrist. So sometimes where I might add a little bit of wrist, again, is on some of those roll volleys. So here are a couple of more traditional roll volleys where I'm not using my wrist and I'm getting a little bit of topspin on there. But now, if I add the wrist to this shot, it allows me, in theory, it allows me to go after that ball even a little bit more. I can accelerate a little bit quicker right at the point of contact with my wrist. So that allows me to be a little bit more aggressive with some of these rolls. Okay. Another time where we might be okay using our wrist is in desperation. A lot of times you might see somebody use their wrist when that ball gets behind them. Our first goal is to not let that ball get behind you, but if you absolutely have to, it might make sense to reach back and utilize our wrist to get that ball to go where we want it to. And that can be done on either side. A lot of times you might see a last-ditch effort flicking our wrist just to get that ball up and over the net. Here's a quick example of maybe when to use the wrist when that ball gets back behind you. Hey guys, just a quick reminder, if you are looking for Franklin paddles, I've got them available for sale on my website, zanenavratilpickleball.com. Free shipping anywhere in the United States. Again, you don't really want to be messing around with using this wrist until you have very, very solid fundamentals. But another context in which the wrist can be used is just to add a little bit more punch to our volleys. When we were rolling those volleys, our wrist was coming up the back of the ball. But now, to add a little bit more punch on a volley, we can get our wrist to move through the ball here. Okay, so here are a couple of volleys where I can use my wrist just to generate a little bit of extra pace. Whew, too hot to handle. One more. So I'm able to get pretty decent pace on my shots just by those little fine movements. But I can't stress enough, don't do this until you have very, very solid fundamentals because it's a very risky play. There are times to use your wrist in pickleball. They're few and far between and very, very situational. The best time to use it is on top of a very good roll volley. And you can check out that video on how to do roll volleys right there.